I got the chance to work with our previous queen for the Crown Prince and Crown Princess wedding. And of course, the honor of knowing that your queen is using your products. And even today, still today, like Timeless is now at the Royal Castle.
You said you started as an apprenticeship.
It is not what you see in TV. It's not the glamour you see today on SoMe and so on. It's hard work. It's really, really hard work. You always got to be prepared. You got to have your things ready.
How was it to meet the Queen? How did it make you feel? Jesper, thank you so much for being my guest in here. As I mentioned earlier, we would go through the logistics first to have it a bit easier. I would like you to introduce yourself very briefly in 2-3 sentences. Then I would like us to talk about your early career, how you transition from that early career from behind the bar or working into the hospitality industry to actually working into the consultancy, starting designing glassware, and where are you right now in the present moment, and what you took from the past as values, as skills, and transpose them into your job nowadays. So thank you so much for being here, and I will let it to you.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Briefly, making a long story short, as you say, my name is Jesper. I come from a background of being an educated chef and being an educated waiter. Adding on, you can say, the bar part, the sommelier part in my working years within practical work within the restaurant industry. And then move to the other side of the table, going into the business part and the suppliers of the food service industry, working both in food and beverage part and in tableware part, meaning the non-food part of it. And you could say, all in all, I spent all my life in and around the food service or the hospitality industry, in short.
Yeah. Obviously, Copenhagen has one of the most respected industries nowadays when it comes to food. But when did you start it? How was the industry? How was being a chef when you were in an early career?
Well, when I started as an apprentice many years ago, actually too many years ago when I think about it, we were under a heavy French influence. I started out at Gentofte Hotel, at that time, very French-inspired restaurant, and everything was done according to the French traditional cooking style. So everything was, not everything, but the majority part of the raw materials were flown in to fit the menus. The menus didn't fit the season like it is today, but it fitted the type of restaurant and the raw materials we had to bring in from all over. So we had beans in from Kenya, we had meat in, poultry meat in from France and from all over, instead of using local raw materials to the extent we do today. So you can say I was kind of part of the early days of the Scandinavian and Nordic cuisine. Now, some said that we were the revolution back then. We were the ones starting what you see today when we started to revolt against this traditional French type of cooking. And we started to look more on the raw material, the seasons we had here in Denmark and in the Nordics, than looking at what was the history of French cuisine and so on. And in that sense, this is basically, you could say, how the Nordic kitchen started and the Nordic cuisine.
You said you started as an apprenticeship. Did you always knew that you want to go into the hospitality or HoReCa, or it was just after the university you had to choose something? Let's go a bit deeper. Let's go back.
I couldn't boil an egg when I started in the kitchen, and I had no idea that this was the direction I was going. It all started, you can say, like very much my career has, with an opportunity that arose. I was working during my school days as a bellboy at a hotel in Copenhagen. And that's how I got into the industry, because I had no clue what I wanted to do. what I knew at that point is I was not going to, after the public school, going to sit for another 3 to 5 years. I wanted to use my hands. I wanted to do something creative. And then I got the chance to start as an apprentice, first as a waiter and then as a chef. And I think by combining that, I kind of find more or less my purpose in life, because of the space you have for creativity and that way around.
So looking back into that early days, what would you say it was an unwritten rule, let's say like that, from where you were in the kitchen and then you had to do certain things? What was an unwritten skill, basically? How did it work?
When you start in this industry as an apprentice, maybe not as much today, but more back then, it's tough. It is not what you see in TV. It's not the glamour you see today on SoMe and so on, where you see a bartender standing, shaking one drink at the time. You see a waiter serving 4 guests, a few people around him, or in the kitchen that you have all the time in the world. No, you don't. It's hard work. It's really, really, really hard work. It's long hours, and it's a rough tone in both the restaurant, the bars, and the kitchens, and there is a heavy workload because everything has to be on time. One thing you can't miss in the industry is the timing. So you got to be prepared. You always got to be prepared. You got to have your things ready in order to be able to work as fast as you can once you get the orders, whether it's on a drink or it's for food or whatever you're serving. So this is the key point. So I think that was the first shock you got, that you're actually under so much pressure and it's such a hard work. But once you get used to that and you kind of work and you find your way of dealing with that, it is a unique industry. Either you love it or hate it. This is what I always say. And I think it's important that you love it because it's a world where you give so much of yourself.
So from the apprentice, where did you move afterwards? How did that path go? Now, as apprentice in the kitchen, and what was next?
I was done with my apprenticeship, and I did my military service, as you have to here in this country. I was kind of at a point where I was saying, nobody's going to tell me what to do right now. I needed to make my own decisions. So I moved to the US and to Canada for a couple of years. On my own, just with my educations, and I started working in Vancouver in Canada as a sous chef over there, and like finding my own way of working after being told what to do for about 6 years. You needed to find your own path, you needed to find your own feet, so to speak, and that's what I started over there, and I was there for about 2 years.
So you moved from Copenhagen to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Have you encountered any cultural differences into the kitchen world?
But where I was at the end, where we were kind of like moving into the new Nordic kitchen, the way we were looking at raw materials, fresh produce, the way we were looking at nose to tail cooking, where we used everything on the raw materials, whether it was meat or it was vegetables, and then moving to a more US based. Now it was still in Canada, it was still under heavy European influence, but there was also a lot of US influence. The mindset was kind of different. The educational system within the industry is different over there. So the skill level of the people you work with was different. So they came with another background. But besides that, I think the hospitality industry is one of the best industries to travel in. Because at the end of the day, all you want to do in the kitchen is do the best you can, give your guests the best possible experience. The same goes in the bars, that you're there to perform a service. You're there to sell, you can say, an experience, whether it's a drinking experience or it's an eating experience. So you can say in that sense, no, not a huge difference.
I often tend to say that hospitality, or people that are working into the hospitality behind the bar, chefs, they are quite creative persons.
You got to be.
You got to be.
We are playing with colors. We are playing with the eye. Now, science tells us that 25% of the total dining or drinking experience is the first impression, which means the visual. So one of the key things we need to do is to make everything look as good as humanly possible. This comes from the food, your plating, the plate you're plating it on, the cocktails you're making, and the glassware you're using to serve it in. All of it has to be combined, and everything, you got to lift it to an experience. Because again, in my world, you are not serving a drink, you're not serving a meal. No, you are serving an experience.
Yes, we have the same vision. A glass, a plate, an empty glass, an empty plate means quite nothing unless you combine multiple ingredients to make the guest experience.
Yeah.
Talking about glassware, plating, coming from a chef, now it makes a bit more sense into my mind how you transitioned into the actually making them. What was that moment when you've seen the problem in the kitchen and said, I want to create my own plates?
But it came years later in that sense. When I the last years in the industry, I started looking at a broader perspective of the industry and wanted to kind of move out of the practical work in that sense. I loved it. I enjoyed every moment of it. Even though it was hard work and sometimes really, you were annoyed, you were angry, you were shouting, you were crying, a lot of things at the same time, because it is a tough industry. But as I said earlier, I moved into the supply part of the industry, where I first moved into Carlsberg, and I was in charge of their hospitality or food service division in the Nordics, building that up, and then I moved into Nestle, into fast-moving consumer goods, also with the focus on the food service and the hospitality part. And at the end of my time in Nestle, because we had ice cream, and when we were talking to restaurants, to hotels, we were talking about serving the ice cream, and I was kind of in that time I was looking into saying, okay, how do we present the ice cream, and I was feeling that we could do better on the plating of the ice cream, the presentation of the ice cream. And there I started doodling on a piece of paper, drawing some lines, and I actually got a porcelain company to manufacture one of my designs at that time, which kind of got me interesting into that part. And after that, I spent 7 years as a director with ARC International, the biggest tableware company in the world. And after that, 7 years almost with Libby, which is the biggest North American tableware manufacturer. And that's where I really started getting into it.
How did you convince the first time when you got into, after you drew the plate, the tableware onto the paper, how did you convince the manufacturer to take the designs in?
A lot of small talk, I think. No, but I think again what I mentioned earlier when I talk about the 25% of the experience is the visual, is the first impression. And when you look at it, and in those days working for Nestle, which is a supplier to the industry, and of course when you are a supplier, you want your products to be presented in the best way possible. And I'm using that, and I talked to the factory or to the brand, and then they got the points I made, and they were willing to take a chance, and we did it. Not hugely successful, but okay. We all have to start somewhere.
Yeah, and from there, after you work with those two major companies, how did the entrepreneurial side came out of you? Because my view so far is right now you started in hospitality, more like a frontliner, then you went a bit into the corporate, and then you went into entrepreneurship. Is that correct?
Yeah. That pretty much sums it up in that sense. Saying, for me, stepping into the biggest tableware manufacturing company in the world in those days, ARC, taking over a fairly large area, of course, was, you can say, a challenge. and that's something I wanted to do. I wanted to test myself in the corporate world, so to speak. And we were successful in what we're doing, and I could see my ideas, my thoughts was working. And the same when I moved into Lippi. But I never forgot the creative part. And one of the things that I brought with me along the way is the philosophy, is the idea about the hospitality industry, the DNA of the industry. And the basic phrase is saying always doing your best, always be prepared, always remember that there is somebody on the other side. There's somebody sitting at the table. So, and in my world, and what I incorporated in my, you can say, in the corporate world, and to my teams and my colleagues I was working with, is the responsibility to always do your best and always try to get the best result for everybody. Because the easiest thing in the world is to sell once. The most difficult thing is to sell multiple times to the same company or the same people, which is basically the DNA of, working in a kitchen, working in a bar. You always want to do the best. And there is a judge on everything you do. Every plate you make, every cocktail you make, there is a judge, there is a receiver, and it has to be perfect every time. That's what I translated into the corporate world in the way I approach the market and I approach the customers and the projects we were working with.
That's a fantastic answer and a fantastic philosophy to move in. Then one thing that I wanted to talk about you. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is this one, what we have in here as well. This, it's when first I've seen them, it was not when I met you. It was way long before I met you. And I looked at them. First, I can tell you I did not like them in the beginning when I just seen them. But then once I started to work with them, I realized that they are a lot more practical and they are a lot better from a bartending perspective than the previous ones that I used to work with. Because you made some designs in here that are actually usable in the bar, which most of the designers, when they are coming, unfortunately, into the hospitality industry, they never been into the hospitality industry. And they never design something for the hospitality industry with the mind that somebody as a bartender will gonna use it, or as a chef will gonna use it. What kind of points did you look into it when you build the Timeless collection?
Timeless is a story that started once I started my own consultancy 12 years ago. But Timeless and the other products that I was part of developing in my corporate days, working as a senior director and in top management of the tableware companies I did, is that in order to have a product being accepted in the industry, because of the pace we work with behind the bars and in the kitchens, because of the need for a visually good result, you got to have a product which looks nice, is practical, and we got there was a number of factors. There was never enough storage place behind the bar or in a kitchen. There was a lot of factors. So it needs to be practical, it needs to be durable, and it needs to look good.
Yes.
And this is some of the ground rules when you work with tableware. And this is the big difference between, you can say professional tableware and tableware for use in your home. There is some differences there, and we've been successful with that in the companies I work with. And when I started my own consultancy, one of my first clients, which is the second largest glassware company in the world, they hired me to redo their global food service presence and their distribution, and now out of a corporate discussion between a consultant and the general manager of this company, one evening, where he asked me, several questions about their operation. And one of the questions he asked me, what do you think of our assortment of glassware? And I told him, there is some gaps. You miss some practical, durable, good-looking barware. And he looked at me and said, "Don't be a consultant like everybody else." And I took the challenge. I went back to my hotel room and I started drawing the Timeless collection. And it's all based on my experience from working practically in the kitchen, working behind the bar. These was the key fundamentals in doing this. And then combining that with a visual picture I had of my grandmother's old cabinet in her living room with her old cut Eastern European glassware, crystal glassware. It ended up by becoming timeless. And that's also why the name Timeless came up.
So it all transposes to a much bigger picture, let's say like that, because I see it as a beautiful glass, and right now once you start seeing it, you see it everywhere. It's not that you see it only into the high-end places, you see it as well into restaurants, you see it as well into bars. It has so much versatility into it that you cannot unsee it.
One of the basic ideas with Timeless is that it's affordable glassware, which basically looks like a million. That was one of the key ideas I had behind it. And being able to work with a company also, which is one of the best manufacturers of glassware, and their glass base is very clear, almost crystal looking, made it possible to do what we've been doing. And to be quite honest, I had never ever expected the outcome, and Timeless being where it is today. And as you said, I can go to Singapore, I can go into very, very well-known 5-6 stars hotels, big restaurants, and I can go into a corner bar and I see the glassware there. I can be in Copenhagen, I can be in London, I can be in the US, I can be in Istanbul, Turkey, and it's there, which of course in the beginning was almost overwhelming to see that, and to some extent a little bit frightening, and saying, okay, what is this? What have we started? And now with receiving so much positive feedback, which been it's been a ride.
Oh, definitely, it's been a ride as well. From my travelings, everywhere where I go, I see it. Now that I see it and I know a bit more of the story, since we've been collaborating off the camera as well, it's more and more interesting to see. Okay, so they have it. What is next? What other products? What other products have you created into your line of work? Because we've been talking earlier, and the listeners, they probably don't know, but you've sold more than 400 million glassware and tableware, which is not small numbers.
No, it's huge numbers when you think of it. And no, I think I'm probably the person that's the most surprised of it. But I've been fortunate. The Timeless has created its own life. The following from people from super professional and much more talented people than I around the world has been breathtaking, actually. When you look at it, you look at very, very famous mixologists, you see barware competitions, and you see finalists and winners using your glassware. It's been tremendous, and that also made me move into other glassware designs, like the one you're sitting with, which is the Alicia.
Just to have a clear shot over there.
And also moving in, I made some porcelain products as well, ceramics products. And to a large extent, I owe it to Timeless, which again, back to what I said earlier, started as part of a discussion between me and my client, and became something unique. And I would probably be buried in a Timeless lookalike coffin. I don't know, but and I think it will stick to me for the rest of my life. There is places where I go around the world where they call me Mr. Timeless.
That is fantastic. Let's go a bit more into nerdiness, because what actually makes a glassware? How many types of glassware are? What are the raw materials for the glassware? I'm pretty sure most of the professionals, the bartenders or chefs, they might not know what the glassware is made out of. Obviously, it's glass, but what is under that glass world?
when we talk about glassware, there is different types of glassware, which in their characteristic is kind of similar, but yet different. Now, Timeless is made in what we call soda lime glassware, which is basically the kind of the traditional glassware we use. This is the everyday glassware raw material, which is basically based on sand, soda, all natural products. And we say this is the basic glass, which then has been where you have moved into. In the old days, you had crystal glassware. Crystal glassware is more or less banned today because it contained lead. It actually had to contain 23.8% lead in order to be called crystal glassware. And the lead actually helped it to become more clear. It's a clearer glass base, and it has this cling sound when you hit it together or you hit it. And because there is metal in the glass, you're able to manufacture thinner, more delicate glassware than you are when we talk about soda lime. Now, and then in all this health part of discussions and so on, the manufacturers had to remove the lead from the glassware, so they created what is called crystalline, and some call it non-lead crystal, but where you use other kinds of material or metal materials to put in, and by having that you have the same effect as you did with the lead. And then you can move into what is called borosilicate, where you add other additives, where you make the glass more, you can say, resistant for heat. Now, glass is a unique material. Glass is an amazingly tough material. What glass doesn't like is stress.
Yeah.
And stress can come from usage, but it can also come from temperature differences. One thing glass absolutely hate is to go from hot to cold very fast, or from cold to hot very fast.
If anybody been behind the bar and they took a glass out of the dishwasher, poured some cold water into it, they might know exactly what it will gonna happen.
And that's also something that we put into Timeless when we created it, because there is some ways you can make it more resistant to that by having say similar wall thickness, this part of the glass to the bottom of the glass, so you don't create tension in the glass. The less tension, the longer it lasts. You can say the less tension, the less stress.
Yeah.
And then in that sense, you extend the life cycle of the glass. And this is one of the key things about, again, because Timeless is designed for professional use, this is one of the features that we put into it.
You obviously designed this beautiful product, but you've designed some more of a minimalistic products, some more of a thinner walls glassware. Yeah. How do you see the trends going right now from glassware that are a bit more bold into minimalism world? Do you see it going full on? Do you think it will come back to more of a glass, or how do you see it?
You can say it's kind of like fashion, that it's a circle. Now, when I started in the glassware industry, and especially my years in Lippi, where we were working with traditional US heavy DUF type of glasses. Some call it low ball, some call it DUF in that sense. But now you had this heavy glass, which is very 20s, 30s, basically, the last century type of style glassware. And this that trend has actually lived on for many, many years. Now, and we see now that the trend is moving into thinner glassware, more elegant glassware, where you see a trend coming, and it's actually coming a Spanish influence from their traditional cedar glasses and so on, that most of us, when growing up, being tourists in Spain and in Italy, has seen this type of glassware, which now 30, 40 years hits the food service industry globally. Just like we had the trend with the 20s and 30s, heavier glassware, we see the thinner. But I would be very surprised if we in another 20 years don't see the heavier ones coming back full scale. And no, actually, to be honest, when we did the timeless, none of us expected it. It's now 10 years ago since we started it. We were right in the middle of the wave of heavier glassware. So we didn't expect it to last as long as it has, but luckily it has. But now we see the trend moving into thinner, and I started working with the thinner glassware designs about 2 to 3 years ago, and we are now seeing it growing really, really fast.
Let's go back a bit more into our first discussion when you mentioned that working in the kitchen, it was stressful. Did you took that kind of stress when you moved to the corporate ladder, or how did it help you when you started your own entrepreneurship career?
I think one of the lessons we learn very fast when we work in the industry is that I don't know. You can say we get immune, because you never get immune from stress in that sense. But we get used to working under pressure. Now we learn very fast that one thing you can't do is to lose your head. You cannot lose the overview. And this is one of the key things that I brought with me all along, together with the core values that we talked about earlier. And this is also now, today I'm lucky that I get invited to speak at business academies around the world. And this is some of the things that I try to teach the young people that I'm talking to, and I have the pleasure of teaching, is that you can read books all your life. That doesn't make you a good manager, a good leader in that sense. No, life makes you a good leader and a good director, and the experience that you pick up along the way. And one of the things that I am fortunate to have is a background in an industry that has taught me to work under pressure, to keep a cold overview, calm overview of things, learn to organize, preparation. Now, one of the things that you learn in a kitchen or standing behind a bar is that in 2, 3, 4 hours you have a full bar or you have a full restaurant that you have to service. The only way you can do that is being prepared. Now, every time you need to go out and do last-minute savior actions, you get into trouble because you get out of your workflow. So preparation and overview is everything. And these are some of the key fundamentals that I see in corporate life as well. And this is something that I work with as a consultant with major companies around the world. This is one of the things I learn, both the young people in the companies, but also the management there, is that this is one of the key points, and this is one of the key, roads to success, is planning and preparation.
Planning and preparation. That is definitely one or two key takeaways that our listeners will take it. I'm sure that from your travelings, all of your travelings as a consultant or in the corporate, you had some stories. Do you have any interesting stories that you can share with us related with the glassware or related with the hospitality?
It's difficult to pick one.
If it's difficult to pick one, let's see.
So, but I think you could say in general, I've had the pleasure and been fortunate enough to travel the world, probably multiple times, and always, when I've been traveling, I always been out. I love to explore new countries, new trends. Coming from the industry, of course, you visit a lot of restaurants and you visit a lot of bars, trying to see what is going on, the trends, and I think from doing that, you see a lot, and you experience a lot. And picking out one story in front of others are very difficult. But I think what I do want to state is what's been a big pleasure for me is to see, I would say, the serious professionalism we see in the hospitality, the food service industry around the world, and the key points, and I also see the pride in people when they're working. And I think that's one of the key points. And it's stating fun parts of stories. There's so many, and it's a world where a lot of things happen. So let's keep it to that.
Yes, but you mentioned that you usually, when you design for experiences. When you design tableware, when you design glassware, you design for experiences. What is one of the experiences or events that you've been working on and you had to design some products for?
I've done several by now, but I think you're fishing for the Royal Wedding.
I do.
which of course was an amazing experience in many ways. I got the chance to work with our previous queen. Because she invited me to do the glassware for the Crown Prince and Crown Princess wedding, which is now King and Queen's wedding, where she also did the monogram. So she wanted the monogram, but she designed it at that point to fit the glassware we did. So I had the pleasure and honor to meet her several times up to the wedding, and was also say at the castle during the wedding for a number of security reasons and TV and stuff like that. And I had the pleasure to do extra glassware for the royal family around it, which to me, of course, as a Dane, and to some extent a royalist also, of course, was a pleasure, but also to meet her as a person, because she is a remarkable person. And of course, the honor of knowing that your queen is using your products, and even today, still today, like Timeless is now at the Royal Castle.
How is it to meet the queen? How did it make you feel that that they decided to go with you taking the designs into and making something only for their wedding?
I think that to me, as I said, it was an honor, it was an experience. I was kind of surprised, I have to say, that the informal way that the Queen works in, and also the creativity she has herself. Because it's also one of the situations where my shut up and listen point also came in, because she is extremely creative herself, and working with her, ping-ponging the ideas for the shapes of the glasses, and why she wanted it. She had a clear idea what she wanted, and she also explained to me why she wanted it that way. In that process, you also got to learn that she actually has an amazing sense of humor, which is a big part of how she talks to people and work with. So overall, a really, really fun experience that I cherish and of course will remember for the rest of my life.
So now the glasses are into the palace. When we're talking about the experience of the wedding, what did made that glassware so special for the Queen?
I think because it was her gift. No, it was not anything. Yeah, it turned into the official glassware of the royal couple, but first and foremost, it was a mother's gift to her son, and it kind of showed that she wanted it to be exactly that, something that was beautiful to look at and useful to work, and well knowing that it will have an official place also for the Kingdom of Denmark, by being the official glassware of them, and to some extent it still is. So I think that part was also a huge part of the experience, because at the end of the day, and when you sit with her and you talk, you learn very fast that she's not just, if you can say, just about a queen, but she's first and foremost a mother. And in this situation, the mother part of it came through quite clear. And I think it just makes you respect her even more, because she is a modern mother in many ways. From growing up with the royal family, you will see that also in the way that the princes are brought up, that she, in many ways, it has a modern look on things.
So you've been working with different fields as we spoke. You've been working in so many. You mentioned at one point that you are doing talks into the Copenhagen Business School. You are doing fairs. You are doing coaching.
You can say when you talk about speaking
Yes.
and being an ambassador, which I've had the pleasure of becoming, and I've done on several occasions. It goes a little bit back to, we talked about the industry in general, the DNA of the industry. And what the values that are brought up in the industry learn along the way. Like when we talked about in the kitchen, behind the bars, the presentations, things you need to be prepared. Every time you present a plate of food or you present a cocktail, every time you address a guest in the bar or in the restaurant, it needs to be perfect. And this is what I have been trying to translate into the corporate world. So when I'm invited to do speaker sessions, whether it's for companies within the food service or hospitality industry, or it's companies from completely different industries, this is kind of the message that I'm trying to belong to them, is that, we got to take responsibility of our actions. Whether you are selling vacuum cleaners, cars, or you are selling cocktails or in a bar or food in a restaurant, we always need to do our best. And we always have to try to give the best possible service to our customers or to our guests. And it doesn't matter how big a company is or how small it is, whether it's located in Turkey, in Romania, or in Denmark. This needs to be core values of companies. No, you have a product or you have a service, be proud of it and make it to the best possible product or service for your customers, for your guests. And I think this is core values that we need in the corporate world just as much as we need it in the food service industry. And this is where I see, you mentioned a little bit about young people at one point and education. And I think one of the key educations that I've learned, that I brought with me, the lessons that I learned from the industry, and what I do think a lot of young people can bring with them from working in the hospitality industry, is exactly that. Always do your best. Always be prepared. Always knowing that there is you can say, a reaction to the actions you make. And because in the hospitality industry, the reaction we get, the answer from what we do and the response to what we do gets immediate. If you're standing behind a bar, there's no more than half a meter between you and the response to what you have created, what you have served, what you have said, what you have done, the actions you have made. No, you cannot hide behind a telephone. You cannot hide behind a computer screen. You are right in front of your customer, of your guest. The same in a kitchen. No, the reaction is immediate. This is why we are a little bit like surgeons. We cannot fail. We have to have the best possible result every time. And if you manage to convert that into other jobs, into other areas of life, you can use it along the way. And this is a huge experience and that you get when you work in the industry. And it's just, by working with that every day, it becomes part of your DNA. It becomes natural. If you and I sit and discuss it, we can agree in 2 seconds because it's part of our DNA. But when I discuss it with a sales manager selling cars or selling machine parts somewhere in the world, they don't necessarily see it as a natural thing. No, you need to tell them why, and you need to train that. And that's why I think that a lot of people that wants to move on from working in the hotel and restaurant industry, they can have great careers in sales and marketing. First of all, because they're creative, and they live by this. The service part and the service demand, they live by it every day.
Yep.
And they need to face that all the time. And when you convert that to other sales situations or commercial situations or even manufacturing situations, you can be successful in doing that as well. So just because you start out in working in the kitchen or working in the restaurant or working in the bar, you don't have to be stuck there all your life. A lot of people do like me. We jump ship along the way and go on the other side of the desk and move into sales and marketing of products of different kinds. In my case, products related to the industry, but it doesn't have to be related. I think we get some core values. That's the thing I'm trying to say, is that you learn a lot of core values, use them in a practical sense, use them in a creative way when you build your further career.
That is very well said, because I believe as well that being behind the bar or being a frontliner, you get a lot of the values. You get to learn how to talk with people. You get to learn how to sell. You get to learn how to present. You get to know how to public speak. You get to know how body language works, and you get to know more on the personal skills, more on the soft skills, but also you get to know the analytical skills, because if you are a manager in a bar, let's say like that, you have to do the mathematical calculations in the end of the night. So our industry is quite versatile in a way that you have so many paths. After you get tired or you get bored or you want to go out, in a sense, that you can choose. And there's so many ways that you can do. What other topics are you talking when you are going for fairs or seminars? Or I know you've been working with Bogdor. What subjects are you tapping in when you keep seminars?
No, say when like my work with Bocuse d'Or has been very much based on two things. You can say, first of all, I speak the language of the chefs. Chefs can be complicated people, and they can be very simple people. But when you're talking about events like Bocuse d'Or, which is basically the World Championships of Chefs, it's a tough competition. Now, these guys, they practice years to be part of it. So there is, of course, as an organizer, Bocuse d'Or needs to be able to communicate with them, make sure that everything they need are in hand. They need support in the best way possible, because they fly in to an event from all over the world, and they might have forgotten, like last time in the European final, there was a team, they forgot olive oil. And they found that out 15 minutes before the competition starts. Then it's my task to solve that, which we managed, but it was kind of difficult in northern Norway to chase up olive oil at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. But we managed, and things like that. And then I also deal with the sponsors. And that is where my corporate side comes in, because all the sponsors are suppliers to the industry. So I speak their language as well. So that's one role. Another role is when I'm invited to speak at fairs like the HoReCa Academy at the Ambiente Fair, which is a big trade fair, one of the biggest in the world. That there's another part there. I need to speak about the tableware industry, the kitchenware industry, then the trends, the needs and wants. When I'm invited to speak to the table event, which is an event where suppliers meet operators, hotel chains meets possible suppliers. It's different topics. Being part of panel discussion. So it's all down to say that specific event. I'm also hired by big companies to talk about their internal things, where there is some topics, and how I can transfer my experience into their world. So it's different from time to time.
So it's like in a bar, let's think it like that. When you have different type of guests, you need to, in order for you to make a good hospitality or to make a great experience, you need to speak their language. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I think one of the things we learn, like you mentioned it yourself when you talk about, we face a lot of people in our industry. We face business people, we face everyday people, we face young people, we face sober people, we face drunk people. There is a lot of people we face. We need to deal with a lot of situations, even confrontations. And I think one of the things we learn is we learn to, you can say, bark like the dogs we're among. We learn to handle that part, and we learn to handle it with a smile.
Yeah.
Because we always, when we are especially in management positions, behind a bar or in a restaurant, when there is a conflict, which will happen eventually, because there is alcohol involved and there's a lot of people involved, we learn to deal with it, and we need to adapt. And I think this is one of the things that when you put your experience down in the basket and you pull them up when you have a task to fulfill, it's talents or skills you have developed, which you can use in the proper ways, which is again all part of what I'm saying, being prepared, planning, and using the things you have learned. And that's where I find that working in the hotel and restaurant industry, or food service or hospitality, whatever you call it, gives us a very big palette, very wide palette of skills that we learn and we deal with on a daily basis that we can use further on in life.
Yeah, one example that pops up to my mind that I know you are working on it. It's exactly the hemp glassware and the hemp tableware that you created. And I believe that transposes the best of the work in the field, the work with major companies, and putting a product onto the table that fits the need of the today's age. So I would really like to talk a bit more about that project, because I know you made it with tableware brokers, right?
So yeah, we say I'm not afraid to try new things, and some people. And people close around me will say probably too many things, but the project you're mentioning, my hemp project, or I call it my hippie project, is basically based back to my chef. Now, when we talked about being part of the new wave in Danish cuisine, Nordic cuisine, where we actually brought back some old values. Nose to tail cooking. No, when you have an animal, use the entire animal. When you have, vegetables, fruits, use everything. And I was kind of looking at saying it's got to be possible to find substitute materials to plastic, to melamine, because I really had a hard time accepting the fact that when we look at our kids in kindergartens, when we look at people in hospitals, when we look at people, our older people living in retirement homes, why should they eat off a melamine plate, which basically contains formaldehyde, which means that in order to manufacture it in the cheapest way possible, the fastest way possible, and make it last as long as possible, you add on adjectives which are not good for you. So, and actually, don't we love our kids? Don't we respect our elders? It's enough to say, you need some decent tableware. Now, it might be that porcelain is not the perfect tool for these institutions, but we got to find other things. We cannot accept that if they are having, in a kindergarten, if kids are running around playing outside and there's hot cocoa served in the wintertime and you come in 5 minutes late, they reheat your cocoa in the melamine mug in a microwave, and it actually gives away formaldehyde fumes. To me, that is not respect. This is not common sense. To me, this is budget. This is thinking on money instead of the kids. in this situation. So I started looking into it, and we found out that actually by mixing hemp fibers and even on top of that, even also leftover hemp from the textile industry with different natural products, we could create a raw material where we can actually substitute plastic and melamine in a product that is 100% biodegradable, dishwashable, reusable, and only semi or a small fraction more expensive than the product being used today. So not only do we replace something which is not good for you health-wise, which is not recyclable. Now, matter of fact is that on melamine, when we talk about melamine, is that when humanity dies out, the cockroaches will still be eating or drinking of melamine products because we cannot get rid of them, because we are not allowed to burn them. So it minimizes what we can use them for afterwards. Where our products, if you throw it in the nature, it's gone within 24 months, without leaving any kind of microplastic or anything. So I think the values into that also comes from the values from the kitchen, the values from our industry, with respect to the materials you're working for, the environment you're living in, and showing respect to that. And that's what I'm trying to do. And with the creation of this hemp product and the company called Responsible Solutions, where we are working in it with these things, it's very much dated back to this part. Then you also mentioned Nordic Tableware Brokers.
Nordic Tableware Brokers, because I know that this is one of your latest projects. Is that correct?
This is a project we started last year.
Yeah.
And Nordic Tableware Brokers is a different kind of tableware, kitchenware distribution company. Actually, we are more like a brand house. We are fortunate to work with some very, very good brands. Most of the brands I've had as clients or partners in the consultancy. And our approach to the market is slightly different because we always look at from the end consumer's point of view, whether we are selling into retail or we are selling into the hospitality or food service industry. When we are selling into the food service industry, we are talking directly to the end users. We are talking to the restaurants. We are talking to the hotels. And we are advising them to buy products which is suited for exactly their use. So because the needs and wants of a corporate canteen or a hospital or a hotel, 5-star hotel towards a 2-star hotel, or a high-end restaurant to a cafe, to a bar, to like what we call bodegas in Denmark. All of them have different needs and wants. And we believe, and I believe strongly in that, we need to advise them to buy the best possible product for exactly their use. And in that sense, you make a difference. You add value. And part of the DNA that I've taken with me from all the way from the kitchen and the bar is adding value. Now, in my world, in a kitchen and in a bar, you sell an experience, as I mentioned earlier. You don't sell a cocktail. You don't sell a meal. You sell an experience.
Yep.
So you add value in that sense to people's life by giving that experience. And when we look at the total experience in a bar and a restaurant, is that every guest we have in, from the enter the room to the exit, they should have the best possible experience. We should add value to their evening, to their week, to their month, to their life. If they come in angry, sad, heartbroken, we should try to put them in a good mood. And that is what people in the industry are trying to do to the best of our abilities. The same when you are selling things. You need to look at each customer differently. You need to look at their world, and you need to make their experience the best possible experience. That's why we look at it this way. And now by doing this and having a flexible approach to it, because you need a flexible approach to it. You need to have a big toolbox when you have this view of the world. We've been fortunate enough to grow rapidly and very, very fast within the last 12 months.
That is impressive. Talking about the last 2 months, how would you see the next 12 months or maybe next 2 years? What kind of other future plans do you have up to your sleeves?
Depends on the geopolitical view of life that different heads of states have around the world. No, I think, we are under some tremendous trends at the moment. And by living and working in the Nordic region, we of course have a huge focus on sustainability, the environment, and not only the natural environment, but also social environment and that part. And I think this is a growing trend globally. And this is something that we need to adapt to. So when we are talking about products and raw materials, it will be more and more in that sense, operational wise. We need to look at the social environment, the human part of it. And I think all of this will have an impact on how we look at things. To me, you can say, I'm probably focusing more local than global for the future. We've been fortunate enough with Nordic tableware brokers and now also to launch in North America, for good and for bad at the moment. But I have a strong feeling that we as Nordic people and as European, with the brands and the products we have here, can make a huge difference in America. We see, especially on the East Coast and West Coast, trends towards sustainability, the environment, and so on. The Midwest in the U.S. slightly different, but hopefully it will come. So we see a growing interest for European brands, European products in North America. So we're working with that, focus on that part. And we want to grow the local part also in the Nordic. We with Nordic tableware brokers, we are looking into getting restaurants and hotels and larger operations as well as private people to buy more local products, want to buy European products. In our company, we don't work with any manufacturers from Asia. We only work with European manufacturers because I truly believe we need to support local manufacturing. And that goes both Nordic and European. And we also need to look at the CO2 footprint. We have a lot of responsibilities we need to look at as a sales company. And we also have responsibility as people to the best of our ability, try to purchase locally and work with local manufacturers and support them.
You said purchase local. What should be some key features that a manager or a decision maker should look into it when they are deciding to change their tableware or their glassware?
I think now looking at it in an overview, in the Nordics right now, we get a lot of support in that from the governments with the CO2 taxes, the footprint taxes they're looking at and they are implementing. European Union will do the same. So I think that when we're talking about food and beverage managers or purchasing departments at hotel chains and restaurant chains, and to a large extent also, you can say retail chains and larger retail distributors and companies, we need to looking into buying locally, as I mentioned earlier, because it's a matter of the CO2 footprint, but it's also a matter of strengthening European manufacturing. And I think everybody that went through COVID, as a buyer, as a supplier, as an operator, suddenly found out that it's not that easy to get your products from a far distance when crisis hit. And also after COVID, there was huge problems with global transportation. So suddenly the timelines, they all fell like cards in the wind, and a lot of, say, operations suddenly didn't have access to the products they usually have.
Mm-hmm.
And you can avoid that by buying locally because the transportation distances are shorter. So I think that is also a view. And again, the values of traditional European manufacturing, and this is something that I really held dear, is that, like, when we talk to our Portuguese partners manufacturing porcelain, ceramics, flatware, there is a pride in what they do. There is a tradition. No, our Portuguese flatware company, they only manufacture products from recycled steel and recycled European steel. No, they could have, like most other big manufacturers of flatware, gone to source their products in China, making a much bigger margin, a much bigger profit. No, it's a family company. The values say we got to make the best possible products locally in Portugal, locally in Europe. We need to do it as environmentally safe as possible. So they've taken a responsibility. And then, no, we as their partners also take a responsibility in promoting it in the best way possible. Mm-hmm. And also trying to educate our customers, our partners, to do the same. And there I think, we are all part of a food chain and we can all make a difference, large or small. Mm-hmm. And I think we owe that to the next generation and the next generation.
So Jesper, talking about the future plans, what would you see the future of the industry going in? Towards what direction will go?
I think if we look back I'll look at before COVID or the pandemic and after the pandemic. We in Denmark has been extremely lucky compared to many other countries in the world. And also, I can say, we in the Nordic region have been luckier than many other places. When we talk about the current situation of the hotel and restaurant industry, we're experiencing a huge growth. And our Nordic cuisine, as we spoke about earlier, has become unique in the world.
Yeah.
Our chefs, Danish Nordic chefs around the world, is becoming rock and roll stars to some extent, put it like that. No, we see, now we've talked about my work with Bocuse d'Or, which is always a pleasure. And it's even bigger pleasure as a Nordic chef, because we are always in top 5. And all the Nordic countries are usually also always in top 10. So the tourism industry, the gastro-tourism industry that we are experiencing in Denmark at the moment, and have been for the past year or so, especially maybe a couple of years, is growing, and I think it will continue to grow. And when I talk to people around the world, I was shocked in the beginning, but I'm getting more and more used to hearing the phrase that first we book the tables at the restaurant and then we book the hotel, which is so unlogical, but kind of funny when you look at it as saying this is the magnet we have as a country based on the food we make, the experience we give people when they visit our restaurants and our bars, because they see us as some of the best in the world in precisely that. And I see that moving into Norway. Norway had a hard couple of years, but like Denmark, they came out of the pandemic pretty well. This year, I see very positive signs in Sweden when I talk to people and colleagues and friends in the industry over there. They had a rough 24 and 25, but they're quite positive about 26. From exactly that, we see the tourism coming. Unfortunately, our friends in Finland have a rougher time, and they kind of is a little bit stuck in the bad wheel, you can put it like that. First with the pandemic, then we came out of the pandemic, and then came the conflict in Ukraine. And they have the longest border against Russia. They are close to Ukraine, so not a lot of tourists like choose Finland as the first pick. And Iceland to some extent is far out in the ocean, but are also experiencing this trend of gastrotourism. So I think for us, in and around the hospitality or hotel and restaurant industry, the signs are very positive. And the footwork that I, to some extent, are proud to say that I was part of creating many years ago with the introduction of the Nordic cuisine and the focus we have now on the cocktail experience, mocktails, everything that happens in the bar area, the creativity we show in our industry. The fruits are there now. And to me, it's always a pleasure, whether I'm in Southeast Asia, talking to Japanese, Chinese people, Singaporean people, or I'm in North America or around Europe. Imagine going to Italy and you sit in Milano and you talk to people, and they're telling you with a smile about their great experiences wining and dining in Copenhagen.
Yep.
How much they enjoy coming here, and you hear the same in the US and Southeast Asia. And there I think we in the industry and around the industry can be proud.
Yep.
And which also show us that we have something unique. And if we are smart and we play our cards right, we have something that can build for the future. And we have an industry which is a huge PR thing for the Kingdom of Denmark, for the Nordic region, and for our culture. And it is a unique business card and puts us in a unique spot in the gastronomy world. And when I say gastronomy, I also mean mixology and other parts of the industry. But I think we are in a unique spot, and we can explore that even further.
I believe the same, and I believe that more and more people, more and more new generations should also look into the hospitality or horeca or cuisine more like a job, because until now I have a feeling that some people, to some sort of an extent, they did not choose to be a bartender. But now with the rise of AI and all of the artificial intelligence, these people industries or human industries will gonna have a bit more of a highlight, where you need to be present, where people are seeking connection, because that might be one of the reasons as well that people are traveling from all over the world to dine and wine in Denmark, for that hospitality, for that human interaction. And even if, and I apologize for that, Denmark has a bit of a bad reputation of Danish people being cold people, I believe it's a misconception.
I don't know if it's misconception. I think Nordic people in general,
yes,
and Danes are probably the warmest of the Nordic, can say, countries in that sense. We are kind of reserved in that way, with Danes being the most European of the Nordic. But I think in general, when we look at the industry here, is that the Nordic has always been seen as as entrepreneurs, all the way back from the Viking days. In many ways, you can say, for good and for bad, the Vikings were explorers, but they created the way to navigate at sea many years ago, way before anybody else was thinking in that direction, at least on the same scale. And they were doing new things, they were taking new paths, and we have been doing the same with the kitchen. And now, back when I entered the industry, you only worked in the industry to finance your studies.
Yep.
That was kind of like the way it was looked at. Then came the new waves, and suddenly the chefs became the rock and roll stars. Throughout the 90s, end 90s and beginning of the 2000s, you started to go on TV. You couldn't turn on a channel and there was a cooking show or a bar show, and it's been going in that way. So very often when I talk to young people today, are saying that don't be afraid to jump into the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Because it gives you much more than just a job, much more than just an education. As I said early on, you either love it or you hate it.
Yep.
But if you can adapt to the industry, it gives you such a huge luggage to move on, even into to more corporate business type of jobs later on, maybe. One of the last jobs I had practical in the industry was at Barvox, where I was part of the management of some of the very, very popular restaurants in the 90s there, Barvox, Barvox, Pasta, Barvox, Wine Cellar. And now the majority of our staff was students or ex-students that even went after they finished their studies and they started working as accountants, as lawyers, as multiple other jobs. They worked in the restaurants during the weekend or during the evenings. Why did they do that? Because they passed their years as students. They were starting to make a good income, but they loved the industry. The pulse, the vibes, the interaction between people, and actually also the interaction with your guests.
Yeah.
Like we talked about several times here, the conflict solving, the situations you need to solve along the way, being part of giving an experience to the guest. They love that vibe. The pulse there attracted them. This is, again, when we look at it, it's much more than just a job.
Yep.
It's a lifestyle. And I think building that into the industry, as we have done along the way, has moved it into where you can innovate. Because once you are happy with what you do, once you feel you get, say, what you put into it back again, you also innovate. You're being creative, and this is part of where we say we in the Nordics are slightly different than many other areas of the world. And we do that part, and this has led us to where we are today. So I think in many ways that it's actually an excellent entrance door.
Yep.
To corporate life, to a corporate career later on, because the luggage you get with you is extremely versatile and makes you able to face a lot of different situations.
Yep, completely agree on that one.
So there we managed to move from Nordic cuisine into educational questions. But
yep.
I think it's all, in many ways, it's linked together.
It is.
A pretty good example is this glass.
Yeah.
This glass is a DOF glass.
Mm-hmm.
But why doesn't it have straight walls?
That I know. It's because of the stacking?
Yes. And if you look at it, why does it have panels on the inside?
That I know again because we spoke last time, but...
Because it makes it impossible for it to get stuck on the other glasses when you stack the glass too hot, because there's always air around it.
Yeah.
This is pretty much summing up, you can say, a career in the hotel and restaurant industry, where you see a problem, and you look at it and say, how can I solve that problem? Because that problem is annoying, because not only does the glassware break, but it also takes too much of your time, separating the glass, and it's removing your focus from servicing your guest.
Yep.
And because time is an issue for us in servicing our guests and giving them the experience we want them to have, we need to find a solution. We cannot put it away and say, I will solve it later on. But we need to do something about it. I've taken that part with me into my designing part when I look at the products.
And personally, I believe that's one of the key features what makes a good designer to a great designer to into our industry. We've probably all been there where you walk into a restaurant or you walk into a hotel as a bartender and you walk behind the bar and you look at the station and you see who built the station. Because that architect was never behind the bar. And that it's a plus when you move out of this industry, when you know what the problems are and come up with a solution exactly for that problem.
Yeah, but in many ways. But it's also, you mentioned earlier in our talks about, managing a bar, managing a restaurant. Now, the big difference between being a manager in a bar or in a restaurant and being a manager in an office building is that we know we will face conflicts.
Yep.
It can be with guests, but it can also be with the staff.
Yep.
Because everybody's under pressure and time is an issue. We need to solve that immediately.
100%.
We cannot push it away. We cannot push it to later, which you can do in a corporate office. And one thing I've learned moving into the corporate world is that there is a lot of conflicts, or you can say awkward situations being hidden under the rock. And that doesn't make them go away. Actually, it makes them grow. But in our world, when we're looking at the hotels and restaurants, we cannot afford that. We need to solve it. Now, I mentioned before, like one of my last jobs was at Glassware. Now, some evenings, December, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Christmas dinners, Christmas lunches, I had a waiting list of 2 to 3 hours in all the restaurants. I had 120 young women working the floor. That's, and I'm not saying women, also young men. I'm not, but having so many young people, having so much time pressure, having so much pressure, create conflicts and a growth path for conflicts. Every time you as a manager saw something starting, you need to address it. But you need to do it in a way where nobody gets offended, or as few people as possible get offended, and it's possible to move on. This is problem solving on hand.
Yep.
And it doesn't allow you to put anything aside for later. You need to find ways, because you need people to do 100% of their, put in 120% of their ability now, there and now. So you need to find ways to solve it. This is another part of the luggage we're talking about that you're bringing with you, that you can transfer in, and I have to transfer in when I look at designing a product or the other things in my world today, where we can mold it and we can adapt it to the situations we're in.
How do you stay sharp? How do you stay sharp with this fast moving, with the Instagram, with all of the things moving that fast into the hospitality or Horeca world? How do you stay updated? Where do you pick up your news in terms of Glassware, in terms of Horeca, what is moving? And
I think, first of all, I love what I do. I'm extremely fortunate. No, I can truly say that I love what I do. I'm also fortunate enough to be able to pick and to pick the things that I want to do, that I like to do. And we all know when we do things we love, now it's a lot easier.
Yep.
You don't count the hours. You don't see it as a pressure point in that sense. And I think, been as long as the industry as I have, you also get positively lazy. No, you don't try to chase knowledge about everything. You chase knowledge about the things that interest you, precisely you. And by doing that and having a great network. Now, in this industry, like any other industries, network is important. Having good people around you makes it possible for me to follow, you can say, global trends in that sense. Ongoings in the industry, news and what is happening. And of course, I'm very curious, and I stick my nose into a lot of different things, because I want to learn. For me, every day is a new opportunity to learn. And the day we stop learning is the day we stop living.
Yeah.
In my world. And I think it's a key point for us working in a creative industry, that we got to continue learning. We see influence, we seek influence. And this is, like I said earlier, when I travel, I love to go out and I love to see people working, creative people working, people that are much more creative and much smarter than me. I learn from them. I have a basic saying is that you learn more by watching and listening than by talking. Nobody has ever learned anything by babbling and talking all the time, but they have learned from listening and from viewing and watching people work. And this is the key point. I try to learn. And that's why I love to be around creative people and professional people.
Indeed, it is. And I can speak for myself. I'm learning every single time when I'm sitting on the other side of the table in here, from every guest that I have to my podcast, and from you as well. And thank you, Jesper, and thank you for being here. Usually I like to close this podcast with 2 questions. One question that it's pretty much for everybody, and it's a recurring question, and one question that is tailor-made for you. Which one would you like me to start with?
Go ahead, pick the one you want to ask first. It's up to you.
I think I already know, and we already went through this one, but I still want to phrase it. What motivates you to still working with, or in what motivates you to still working in the hospitality and HoReCa industry every day?
There's several things. I think the creative challenge that I feel I face every day from working with in an industry filled with extremely talented people, which means that I also need to stay sharp.
Yeah.
If I want to be a consultant, the way I want to consult, where I make a difference, I need to stay sharp, and I need to stay probably 2 steps ahead of my clients that I work with. And also, as a designer, when we look at that part, I need to stay 2 steps ahead of all the creative bartenders or chefs that use my designs. So in that sense, that gotta keep me on my toes. It's ever moving industry. We're always moving forward. The young professionals are coming up. They are setting the boundaries for the future. And all us, older people, old farts in the industry, we need to try and catch up. We need to try and keep our place in it too. And I think that keeps you awake, and that challenges me. And then I love to work with people. I love to be creative. So I think that fills my day, and that's why I do what I do.
And then I have a tailor-made question for you, because you've designed countless glassware and tableware. You work with the major companies in the world. If you have to go back to younger self, somewhere in the transition between the corporate and the consultancy, or even earlier from the front line to corporate, what would be one advice that you would give to yourself?
That's a pretty good question. Now, I think I never had a career plan. I've always gone with the flow, if you can put it like that. I loved my days working practically in the kitchen or in the restaurant or in the bar. I felt that when I left that part and moved into corporate, I was ready for the next step. I had no career plan saying I want to reach that position or that position. No, the same when I went. I came to a point where I would say to some extent. Now, I felt I did my part in the corporate world. I have had enough of board meetings, corporate meetings, sitting discussions with staff and union, and I wanted to work on my own and see what difference I could make there. Along that road came the designing part. So for me, looking back, I would say if I go way back, I would say, and my advice to myself would be, keep your eyes and ears open. shut up and learn. And I think by doing that, it helped me along the way. Would I've learned more doing it earlier than I did? Because I have to be honest and say that, I was not that old when the kitchen I was managing got the Michelin star. And I became cocky as hell. Now, I had the hugest ego. And that's why I today also make fun of saying, I cannot invite 5 of my chef friends to my birthday because the egos don't fit my living room. So and looking back at that, I might have said to myself, forget about it, because there's always somebody better out there than you, more creative than you, more talented than you. So again, going back to the shut up and listen and learn part, maybe should have been said a little bit earlier.
Oh, well, I think that's a very good wrap up to this episode. And I'm very glad that you've been one of my guests in here. And I would really want to let our listeners who reached this point, I would want you to let them know where they can find you, if they want to find you.
They can find me on Instagram or on LinkedIn, where I'm trying to stay a little bit active. And that's, can always reach out to me by personal message through either that and through Instagram or LinkedIn. There's my mails are also out there, my homepage. If you find my telephone number, please don't call me, because I can be anywhere around the world, and I'm pretty cranky if you wake up before I had my morning coffee. But if I can help anybody along the way, they are more than welcome to contact me. But please do it by private message or by email.
For sure, and I can guarantee that he will answer. That's actually how we met as well. We met on LinkedIn, primarily, and then we start collaborating. Jesper, thank you so much for being my guest, and thank you for taking your time to be a guest to the Barvox show. Thank you
for having me.
Thank you.